Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Do not forget that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan83. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube. Simply look for Drew Duncan. And, of course, the Full Court Press is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. 32 teams, 32 days, the NFL. A look at each team's upcoming season. The focus right now is the Kansas City Chiefs, who last year saw everybody's mind completely blown when we all got to witness what is and who is Patrick Mahomes. Look, I'm not going to take anything away from the season that he had last year, right? Beyond phenomenal. And one of the things that I had talked about was up until this year, because last year, things that were going on beforehand, right, was Patrick Mahomes not doing any deals with anybody. He wasn't taking any endorsements. He was focusing strictly on football. I thought that these things were really awesome. Hey, I'm not going to do anything until I'm ready. The great thing about Patrick Mahomes is, you know, a buddy of mine has told me is because of the way he grew up with his dad being a huge athlete, and you know, he'd already been around stars and kind of knew how to carry himself around guys in a locker room. And I think that that was a big part of his success. I'd have to agree. For as good as the Kansas City Chiefs were last year, though, there were some issues, right? And, of course, what we all try to do is when we look at a team and we're going to the next season, and as a GM, as a coach, as players, you're going, okay, what can we do to get us to that next level? What's the missing piece to the puzzle here? Well, for a lot of people, they're going to look at the Kansas City Chiefs and they're going to say, well, that's a glaring weakness in their defense. So what do? They let go of some pieces that I think blew everybody away. D. Ford, right? Houston, right? Eric Berry. Then they go out and, of course, they were able to acquire Tyrann Mathieu, who, by the way, last season, 89 tackles. Was it 3 sacks, if I remember correctly, also with 2 interceptions. So as much as I love Eric Berry, believe me when I tell you, that was a huge get for the Kansas City Chiefs. Then they got Deron Lee from the Jets, who, by the way, in 3 seasons has 241 tackles. But I'm not ready to just curse the defense last year for their performance. Look at it like this. The Kansas City Chiefs played against Rookie of the Year nominee and Phillip Lindsay from the Denver Broncos, right? Who in one season found himself voted by his peers as the NFL, one of the top NFL 100 players in all the NFL. You played against Tom Brady, New England Patriots twice, right? You played against the LA Rams, who have one of the most prolific offenses in all the NFL last year. So, yeah, they do need to improve defensively against some of the top-tier teams in the NFL. But to me, more than anything, really what it was the Kansas City Chiefs. When I looked at this football team last year, and really, it's been a problem to me that I've been talking about with them since about 2016, and that is inconsistency in a football game. There's very few times when I look at the Chiefs, especially in some of the bigger games, and go, you had a full 4 quarters of football. You take a look at that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Week 2, they go up 21-0 in that first quarter. It was tied by halftime. You look at the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game, they were down 14-0 in the first half. Then they finally exploded for 24 points in the fourth quarter. I know a lot of people are going to look at the calls that happened later in that game and go, well, that's why they lost the game. Folks, you can't go 3 quarters of playing mediocre football before you finally show up to the game and decide it's 100% the ref's fault. I'm not going to say that there weren't some things, right? The face mask call, I mean, it did happen. Was it as egregious as we would have liked to have seen? How did the referee know that it happened? Was it an assumptive call by the ref? Yes, it was. But also, everybody knows you don't give a ref a chance to dictate anything in the game. So that's one of the things that I see with the Kansas City Chiefs. As a matter of fact, that's one of the glaring things that I see with the Kansas City Chiefs. Happened again against the LA Rams. Remember that game, that Monday Night Football game that everybody talked about? I mean, that was probably the game of the year, right, to a lot of people. But lest we forget, Kansas City was down 13-0 in that football game. And if I remember correctly, Patrick Mahomes accounted for 4 or 5 turnovers, 2 interceptions late in that football game, opportunities to win. So when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs and I ask myself, how can they really take over this year and be the team that a lot of people believe that they can be? Sure, they went out and made the defensive moves. Okay, great. But to me, it's all about in-game adjustment and understanding when to relent a little bit and when to go ahead and keep your foot on the pedal. I mean, this is one of the things that I've talked about with Andy Reid over the years since he's even been in Philadelphia and now on to Kansas City. You look at a lot of his games and they sort of finish this way. You go up really big, right, a few years ago in the playoffs against the Indianapolis Colts. Remember that game? It's just there's something there. I don't know what it is. I don't know what changes. Right? I remember a couple of years ago, and again in a playoff game, Kansas City being up big at the end of the first half. What did they do? They just started running the football in the third quarter. Literally, we're talking Pee Wee football stuff, man. I write 22 dive. Pee Wee League football stuff. Andy Reid's going to have to find that balance. And I'm not saying he's not a hell of a football coach, because he is. And I'm not saying this isn't potentially a hell of a football team, because when all is said and done, it looks like it, despite even the off-the-field issues that this team has had, right? Tyreek Hill and that whole situation. Tyrann Mathieu, they acquire him. It's not long before we start hearing about all these other things coming out of the woodwork that I'm going to let you go ahead and look up for yourself. So they've had some issues that they've definitely had to work through. You're going to see Phillip Rivers again twice this year. We don't know what we're going to get out of the Denver Broncos and Joe Flacco and Phillip Lindsay. We don't know what we're going to get out of the Oakland Raiders. I think this could still be a very good football team. I think they could still win another 12, 13 games this year. But obviously, it's not just about the defense. It's all about playing a full 4-quarter game every game. Starting strong, finishing better, playing to win, and not to lose. Guys, I am Drew Duncan, host of the Full Court Press. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube. Simply look for Drew Duncan. Of course, the Full Court Press is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And as always, don't you dare touch that dial.